welcome to Race for the White House, a show where we get you the latest from US elections. On today's show, we'll tell you how Donald Trump hopes to map out his historic return to the White House. Also on the show, we'll tell you what a potential Trump cabinet might look like. All of this and much more, so let's get started. So whether you like it or not, Donald Trump is back and he is here to shake things up. But trying to predict what Trump will do during a second term is a fool's task, although Trump's already got his first few days back in the Oval Office all mapped out. Now, during his campaign, he had laid quite a few things he would take on his first few days. Now, Trump raised new alarms last year when he referred to himself as a dictator, but only on day one. During an interview with Fox News, he was asked about misusing power as president, to which Trump replied, except for day one. Now, this remark had raised some eyebrows in Washington, D.C. and raised concerns about Trump's return to the Oval Office. Next up, Trump has also vowed to fire Jack Smith, the special counsel who has brought two federal cases against him. The president-elect has also said that he would punish the prosecutors and judges overseeing his multiple criminal cases. Now, this has also sparked speculations that Trump was running for president only for retribution. The Democratic camp suggested that Trump would walk into the White House with an enemy list instead of a to-do list. Next up, Trump has said that one of his acts would be to free some people convicted for their roles in the January 6 attack on the US Capitol. Trump believes that these rioters were wrongfully imprisoned, and he's also been criticized for downplaying the violence that ensued on January 6, 2020, often referring to the defendants as J6 hostages. Also, Trump said in a campaign video last year that he would end the Green New Deal atrocities on day one if re-elected. So the Green New Deal was a public policy initiative to address climate change. However, it was never signed into law. Trump has now used the term to generally refer to the Biden administration's climate and energy policies. Trump has also said that his motivation behind withdrawing from climate initiatives and pushing for continued reliance on oil and gas is driven by economic needs of USA. Also, with immigration, a top issue for voters, Trump has said that he's determined to round up and deport millions of migrants living in the US without legal permission. During his campaign trail, Trump had repeatedly said that he would launch the largest deportation program in the American history. To do so, the former president said that he would use local law enforcement and the National Guard to find migrants living across the United States. An estimated 11 million people are living in the country without legal immigration status. Further, according to a report by American Immigration Council, the cost to report even 1 million undocumented immigrants a year would cost about $88 billion. So, reporting 11 million people would force the Federal Reserves to shell a total of about $967 billion. Now, deviating from his usual anti-immigrant rhetoric, Trump had advocated for automatically giving non-citizens in the US green cards when they graduate from college. However, critics argue that this is nothing except an empty promise. Many said that his comments seem to be an attempt to further quote the Silicon Valley businesses, which heavily relies on work visas for employment. So, from immigration to energy to crime and business, Trump's day one promises are bold, ambitious, and as you might expect, not without controversy. Supporters are thrilled about the prospect of another Trump term, but opponents argue that some of these proposals could spark serious debate. Either way, Trump's already mapped out his plans that will make waves in Washington, D.C. and beyond. Moving on now, Trump's new-founded stance on green cards for college students has been a surprise for many. But was this just a poll narrative, or will Trump deliver on this promise? To decode this for you, our principal correspondent Shang Matu will get us an exclusive interview with US-based venture capitalist Didi Das. Listen in.
Donald Trump is set to return to the White House as the 47th president of the United States. And the day after his election, all of us are really trying to understand what his re-election to office will mean for America, India, and for the rest of the world. One of the things that is a key area of focus for Indians and for the world more generally is Donald Trump's policy on immigration. It's something that he's expressed opposition to in the past, particularly when it comes to high-skilled immigration, but something that he seems to have hinted on changing his position on. Joining me now to unpack Donald Trump, why there's so many concerns about his policy on immigration, is Didi Das, who is an Indian venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. Didi, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. Could I ask you to begin by telling us a little bit about Donald Trump, his return, and why exactly there's a little concern up in the air about his policy on immigration, particularly for Indians in America, particularly for people like you who've been in tech?
Yeah, well, I don't think Donald Trump himself needs any introduction, but yes, as of the time we're speaking, the election was called last night, and we know he's going to come back to be the 47th president. And on the immigration front, I think round one of Donald Trump was generally somewhat negative to high-skilled immigration, but we have a lot of promise coming up for round two.
Mm-hmm. So, could I ask you a little bit about why exactly his first term in office was seen as slightly difficult for immigration? He made certain noises about the H-1B visas, H-4 visas for spouses. Could you explain these different visa types? What exactly the problem was with the first Trump administration between 2017 and 2021?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot to unpack. So let me give you some maybe the high level picture. Generally, one of the stances that Donald Trump ran on during his first time in office was to build in America and make in America. And as a part of that, he did cut down and crack down on some of the various visa programs that we have. And so let me just outline for the viewer what those high level categories are. There is the H-1B. The H-1B is the typical worker visa in America. It's a
Right.
dual intent worker visa. And typically, you will get an H-1B for 3 years and can renew it for 3 years after that. In that time, you can apply for your green card. That's one of the most common ways to work here. Typically, when an Indian student comes to America for their undergrad or their master's or their MBA, what have you, they will, in most cases, graduate with an F1, be on OPT for a while, and then take part in a lottery to get an H-1B. There's 85,000 granted in a year. There's some caveats there. I won't go into the details. And then they work on that visa. A couple of the other visa categories that are worth talking about are the L1 and the O1 visas. The L1 visa is if you're working in a company that's multinational and you want to be brought in to the US, then you're brought in on an L1 visa. The O1 visa is sort of the L1 is also temporary, by the way, in the sense, it is tied to your employer and it is not a green card. So the O1 is the last one I want to talk about, also in the similar class of visas as H1 and L1. The O1 is for extraordinary people, quote unquote. There's a legal argument that you can make. A lot of entrepreneurs, founders, early startup employees use the O1 visa. Has similar stipulations to the other two. And then the second sort of class of visas that we will end up talking about are the EB2, EB3, and the EB1. There are some more, but at a high level, EB3, if you have any sort of undergraduate education, not necessarily in America, you are eligible to apply for an EB3 green card. EB2 is for master's and more advanced degree holders. EB1 comes in three separate categories. I won't unpack it all, but some PhDs, multinational executives,
Right.
and again, it's the extraordinary version of the O1 visa. So that's kind of more or less the gamut of visas that we're talking about.
Right. No, very interesting. If I may add some context as well, there was a good piece, I think, by Forbes as well that looked at Donald Trump, his administration more generally, and its skepticism about H-1B visas. Just to reiterate again, he did at one point call them a theft of American prosperity, which is why there was some concern about his policy on allowing high-skilled immigration. But recently, earlier this year, he was on a podcast where he talked about, where he hinted in some senses that his policy may have changed a little bit. And he said, and I quote, "Let me just tell you that it's so sad when we lose people from Harvard, MIT, from the greatest schools and lesser schools that are also phenomenal schools. But what I want to do is that if you graduate from a college, as part of a diploma, you automatically get a green card to be able to stay in this country." That was his quote. And people took this as a sign that perhaps his policy on this has softened a little bit. Did you ask you what you made of that statement? It's gotten a lot of play. Do you think it was an electioneering promise, or do you think that there's some actual weight behind the statement that Donald Trump has made, that this is in fact a reassessment of how he's seeing high-skilled immigration into the United States?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, anything I say now is going to be pure speculation. I've heard the clip. I've heard him talk about it. And I can only be optimistic at this point. But a couple of other things that people are optimistic about is, even in his election speech, he brought in Elon Musk and called him out pretty substantially. And if you look at Elon Musk's companies, be it X, SpaceX, Tesla, what have you, they employ a lot of very important H-1B holders. In fact, Tesla's head of self-driving, Ashok, I forget his last name, is it was also once an H-1B holder. And so there is a sense from the people that I speak to that this time it is genuinely going to be different, and that he will, be a little bit more lenient, we'll call it, on the H-1Bs. Although, another sort of view may be he may make it more merit-based.
Right.
And, the H-1B is not a program that it's not without its flaws, and it has been abused in the past. So, we will see what comes of it.
Understood. Didi Das, a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley, joining us to explain really all the gamut of issues that you have with the US immigration system, what Donald Trump's election could possibly mean for Indians in the United States who hope to use these visas to study and work there, as well as any hopes for reform in the American immigration system. Didi, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for watching India Today Global.
Now that the race for White House is over, the race for Trump's cabinet has begun. Multiple media outlets have already reported names of those who will fill key roles in a second Trump administration. Now, the president-elect has about 75-day transition period to build out his team before Inauguration Day arrives on January 20th. Now, this means that he'll have to fill out about 4,000 positions. So, what will a second Trump cabinet look like? Let's see. Among potential candidates of high-ranking post, Kashyap, or also known as Kash Patel, is being floated as a choice for CIA director. Now, Patel transitioned to the federal government by joining the Department of Justice as a terrorism prosecutor, leading investigations and prosecutions of individuals associated with groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Kash Patel has been a polarizing figure due to his alignment with Trump's views on national security. Near the end of Trump's first term, there was consideration of Patel for the role of Deputy Director of the CIA or FBI. But this was met with opposition from the then CIA director. So now, with a potential role in a second Trump cabinet, can Trump's Gujarati friend head one of the world's spy agency? Now, Musk turned into a full-fledged cheerleader for Trump during the presidential campaign. He has reportedly sought a role in a second Trump administration. And Trump has appeared to rule out a cabinet role for Musk, but has said that he wants the tech billionaire to have some sort of an unspecified role in his administration. Now, the world's wealthiest person has proposed the establishment of a Department of Government Efficiency. Now, the former CIA Director and Secretary of State might be eyeing the position for the Secretary of Defense in Trump's second cabinet. While Mike flirted with the Republican primary challenge against Trump, he never pulled the trigger, and he is now back on friendly terms. Mike might be the right pick for Trump, as he is a staunch supporter of Israel and views Iran as a clear threat for USA. Now, he has a shot at a role in Trump's cabinet after he backed the Republican during the final stretch of Trump's campaign. He expressed that Kennedy Jr. will have to take care of America's health, now suggesting that he might be given the Department of Health in a new cabinet. An ex-Fox News contributor is now among Trump's closest foreign policy advisors. Grinnell might be probably in the running for Secretary of State or other top foreign policy and national security posts. What makes Grinnell stand out is that he has advocated for setting up an autonomous zone in eastern Ukraine to end the war, a position Kyiv considers unacceptable. Now, one of Trump's two co-campaign managers, Susie Wiles, may be vying for the position of Chief of Staff. Although her political views remain somewhat ambiguous, she is seen as having led a successful and streamlined presidential race. Supporters believe that she could introduce a level of organization and discipline that was frequently absent throughout Trump's first term. A senior policy advisor in the early part of Trump's first term, who was the chief architect of the Muslim travel ban. Now, Stephen Miller is expected to be back in the White House for a second Trump term. He might be of great use, as the president-elect has said that will bring the largest mass deportation in US history. Miller might be tasked with the US Citizenship and Immigration Department. So this is what a second Trump cabinet might look like: a few familiar faces, some surprise picks, and a whole lot of speculation. One thing's for sure, however, this ends on Trump's team will have a lot on their plate. So now, as the news of Trump's victory spreads, world leaders are lining up to congratulate him, some with enthusiastic praise, others with a dash of surprise. Let's take a look at global reaction to Trump's return to the Oval Office.
It is my honor to introduce the 45th and soon-to-be 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
The United States has a new president. In a historic election marked by fierce competition, Donald Trump has emerged victorious, securing his place as the 47th President of the United States. Winning against Democratic candidate Kamala Harris, Trump clinched key battleground states, including Pennsylvania, Georgia, and North Carolina. This put him well above the 270 electoral votes he needed to win the presidency. This election saw intense anticipation, with millions of Americans voting early. While some ballots are still being counted in a few states, Trump's victory has become official. In his post-victory statement, Trump described the result as a magnificent political victory and promised a golden age for America. As global leaders reach out with congratulations, many are eagerly awaiting the policy direction of this new administration. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was among the first to extend his congratulations. In a tweet, Modi celebrated Trump's victory and emphasized the close bond between India and America, expressing optimism for continued partnership and mutual growth. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described Trump's victory as history's greatest comeback. He expressed hope that this marks a new beginning for the US-Israel relationship and also looks forward to renewing the strong alliance between the two nations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also offered his congratulations, emphasizing Ukraine's hopes for continued US support amidst its ongoing conflict. Zelensky highlighted the crucial role American assistance plays for Ukraine. In contrast, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov took a cautious approach. He stated that Russia would be closely observing Trump's actions without rushing to predict future relations. Peskov noted that Russia would assess Trump's intentions based on concrete words and actions, rather than mere rhetoric. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese congratulated Trump, affirming the US-Australia alliance. Albanese highlighted that both nations share a strong bond as allies and are committed to continuing collaboration on global issues. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron extended his congratulations to Trump, expressing readiness to work together on peace and prosperity. The French leader looks forward to addressing mutual challenges alongside the new US administration. And finally, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni echoed these sentiments, emphasizing the strategic bond between Italy and the United States, and expressing her confidence that Trump's leadership will further strengthen these ties. With Trump now officially the 47th president, the world is watching closely. As congratulatory messages pour in and alliances are reaffirmed, the international community awaits Trump's policies that will shape the future of US relations around the globe.
So, there you have it. From a campaign that kept the world on edge to a victory that a few saw coming, Trump has officially shocked the nation. It's a reminder that in American politics, anything is possible. So, as we close out our coverage tonight, we reflect on a journey filled with intense debates, unforgettable moments, and the resounding voice of millions. So, whether you're celebrating or reflecting, this election will be remembered as one of the major events in American history. Thank you for staying with us through every twist and turn. From all of us here at India Today Global, good night, and we'll see you soon with latest updates on this new chapter in American politics.